there's pros and cons about everything. I mean, it's amazing all this new technology. You can do all this great stuff, but if you're listening to the Beatles albums, or they sounded great too, and they were making them on a 4-track and an 8-track. And Sweet Dreams, the album, is made on an 8-track, of which we could only use 7, because the 8th track was always the sync code with this little machine we had, one of the first drum computers, but not like you see them these days. You had to program everything in and see it as a little white dot. And you know, so we had to make the record work on 7 tracks, so every note that was played had to mean something. So we used to say we'd take no prisoners. So something was just filling in space. It was out. Everything was either in or out. And nowadays, you know, you have 72 tracks worth of stuff, and see the poor Mexican guy trying to mix it, and he's got 43 tracks of drums, you know. And so I'm more of the old school, where I go, I don't think you need all that many stuff, you know, unless you're mixing a giant movie score with sound effects and everything. I mean, to make a record that sounds great, I think you need great sounds on the record to begin with. So I'm more interested in the mic that's miking the guitar or the amp, or the ambient mics, and where they're placed, because really a mixing desk is exactly the same as if you had somebody in a room just moving the mics around. So when you move the mics around, you're not taking any away from the sound, you're changing it. When you're EQing, you're either taking something out or adding something to the natural sound. But you could do the same thing by moving the mic in a different place. If you move the mic nearer the bass strings of a piano, it's going to get boomier and bassier. You could leave the mic here and with the EQ turn up the bass and it would get boomier and bassier. But then you've already started a downward spiral, because then, you know, you're using EQ to alter what's happening naturally. So it's best to get the greater sound you want naturally. Then the least EQ you need to use, the better. And then the overall balance, you know, should be, it's like what you do when you're recording an orchestra, really. You put the mics in the right place, the orchestra sounds great. You know, usually they hardly have to EQ anything.